Hey guys, Laura here from Budget Music Videos or BMV Productions. So today I got a request on some of my editing tutorials on YouTube to show how to do color grading on DSLR footage just using something quite basic. Obviously there are very technical ways of doing color grading out there and I'm not going to go into it, but I'm going to show you what I do for my low budget projects. For my bigger projects that have been filmed on the likes of cinematography cameras, obviously we would take it to an independent color grader, which is a much higher end professional service. However, for our DSLR projects, we do charge actually for this service to color grade and tint, things like that, because it is a very time consuming process, unfortunately. You do have to sit and rectify the footage and give it that look that you're trying to go for. I mean, color grading, not only is it to fix a project, but it's also to maybe give it more definition, maybe fix the camera work, depending on what it's been filmed on. If it's been filmed in a raw state, then you're going to have to color grade it like crazy. Now, the great thing about the cameras we're working on at the minute is we're actually filming on the new Sony Alpha range. This project I'm going to show you was actually filmed on the Sony A7S Mark II, if that makes sense. And what you'll find with this, when you're using great lenses as well, is that it's very true to life with the color. If I just flick through this here. So obviously what we're trying to do here is just give it a look that's gonna, make it come together and give it that cinematography style. Now, there's this video at the minute. It is a beach themed video. It is a love story type video. And I have basically put together a very simple dialogue of this guy and girl, and he's singing to her, and it's all very romantic and lovely, and they love each other, blah, blah, blah. And it's fun. There's some fun shots, where they're playing in the water, and it's all quite funny. And so it's quite sweet. So basically, this was filmed, outside on location on a nice sunny day. So you've got, parts of it that are super sunny, like here, and then parts of it that really aren't and things like that. So by putting like some kind of grade or tint on it will help it to all sort of start to look unified. You can see here there's no sun there, and then boom, we got a lot of sun. So it's very hard when you're working in this kind of daylight where it's cloudy and then it's not cloudy and then it's sunny. I mean, that's the joys of the UK, unfortunately. We have sunny bits and then we have no sun, and then we don't have the greatest of weather here. So because this was filmed in true to life, I mean, there's not a lot I would want to do to it, but I'm going to show you just some examples. Now, as you can see, the software I am using is Coral Video Studio 9, and I swear by this for all my low budget projects. I think it's great. It's easy to use. It's fast. I can burn through projects quite quickly on this software. It's quite simple and straightforward. So what I'm going to do first of all is have a look, before I even look at color and things like that, is I would generally go through shots and check for things like maybe the gamma needs brought down a little bit. So when I say gamma, I mean just making the blacks a bit more truer. So I would simply literally go up to my edit up here on the frame, click on color correction, and the gamma, I would drop it down. I mean, every software is different, so I'm not quite sure if it would be up or down with your gamma. It just depends. Sometimes you got to move it up, sometimes you move it down. So it depends on the shot as well. So I've just reduced it by 0.9, and it's just brought the blacks in a little bit truer, a little bit more, less. If I wanted to, I could bring it up and it would fade it out, or brighten it if you want to call it, which is fine, but I think it would be nice to just a little bit sharper, especially when you compare it. What I do is I compare it to the shot before and the shot after, so then it looks in sync. So you see how true the blacks are there, and there, that's the shot before, and the shot after is her, and it's very, very clean and very clear. So you want that shot to be equally as clean and as sharp with the blacks, so then it doesn't look out of place. So I just bring it down, even back down to about 9, I think was nice. Maybe even a little bit less. So yeah, so there we go. So that just brings it in nice. So what I would want to do now, those shots are repeated over a few times, is actually I would just copy and paste that over. So copy the attributes and paste the attributes, and there, it's just brought the blacks in just a wee bit truer, because she was just looking a bit sun washed out there, so she was. Paste it again, and boom, you've got those nice clean lines, which is a much better look. I'll do this one as well, paste all the attributes. So yeah, so all we've done there is just sharpen it up a wee bit, just because it was just a little bit too much sun. So just by doing that is sometimes the simplest of solutions. So I'll just show you before and after. So that's after, before, after, before. Okay. So what you want to do then, I mean, once you've gone through all your, you know, sort of project and checked for places where you think it needs the gamma brought down, I mean, that's generally what I start with, where I think maybe it's been washed out by the sun, or it's been overexposed because the camera hasn't been set properly, things like that. I mean, for example, this one's very dark. I mean, there's ways to lighten it a little bit. We could obviously bring the gamma up a little bit, just to give it that little bit brighter, because it's so dark. But the reason that's dark is not only because they're in shadow and it was filmed, but it was filmed in the afternoon, or very late in the afternoon. So by this stage, the sun is pretty much gone. So you can see that shot, we could brighten it a little bit, but not too much, because then it starts to look faded. So you're comparing it with all your other footage, but there's not a whole lot I could do with that. So now what I want to do is, there are a variety of scenes here. So you've got this lovely scene at the beginning. You've got scenes by the sea. You've got scenes where they're by some rocks, where you can see they've had to bring exposure right down. So all these scenes, each scene would almost need a separate color grade. You couldn't put the same thing on the whole video, you know what I mean? I mean, you can, but it might, in some shots, it might not look right. So you're going to pick your scenes. So you've got this lovely beach scene, and I would sit and play around until I got sort of what I think would look good. Sometimes I can do the same thing over the whole video, but it depends if it's been filmed in one location and one type of lighting and one, you know, if it's been filmed in a studio in one white background with one light setup, I mean, you could do the same color grading for the whole thing. But as you can see here, you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 pretty much scene setups. So to do all the same color grade might be quite difficult. So what I'll do is I'll just pick a scene somewhere in the middle. Let's say this nice beach scene. Now, on Coral Video Studio, the way it works is in your effects up here, scroll down to the bottom, and you've got Vidascene. And Vidascene's like a separate software in itself. You also have Tint. Tint is like is basic. You know, it doesn't do anything other than add a color tint to it. And I can show you that very quickly. Sometimes it's enough. Because what I find now with my projects, because we're filming on the DSLRs, that we don't need to do a lot to them, and when it comes to the color grading, which is great. So sometimes a tint is enough. So for example, say if I pull the tint down, it automatically puts it to blue for some reason, which is horrible, as you can see. So if we go in and edit it, customize the filter. Okay, so it does give you some presets. I do favor Kodachrome quite a lot. As you can see, it makes it nice and warm. The sand looks nice and yellow. Sea looks blue. Warm is good too. There you go. It reduces the blacks. If you can see there, the blacks are not so sharp. Kodachrome gives it a sharper black. There you go, which is lovely actually. It's quite nice. And then you've got lots of other options here. And then what you can do then is play around. So you can play around with the gamma, as I was talking about before. You can reduce it or make it higher or whatever. You can play around with the color tint itself, saturation, brightness, all those things you can play around with. But what you got to remember when you're using this, whatever you do at this marker at the start, you got to repeat at this marker at the end, so it's consistent through the whole frame. And you can't just do it here and then leave it, or it'll go to, you see, if I just play it, you'll see it's going to go to cool by the end, because I haven't copied. See, it's changing the color. And now it's in the cool setting. So we go back to the start. So then, for example, if I use the preset Kodachrome, which is quite nice actually, and then fast it forward to the end and use Kodachrome there, boom, okay. And then if I needed to play with it, I mean, I could take the gamma up, I could play with the brightness, saturation, but to be fair, I think it's beautiful and I don't think it needs anything else done to it. I mean, it's all on your own personal opinion, how you want it to look, you know. I'm not quite sure how I want this video to look. It is a beachy holiday thing, so I do want it to be bright and lovely and maybe a little bit saturated almost, but I'll play around with some options and see what's the best option. So if I hit OK and go into the clip, you'll see the clip is lovely now. It's lovely and bright, it's lovely and airy, and if I compare it to the previous clip, you can see the difference. So that's before and that's after, and you can see the lovely colors are all coming out. It really just sharpens all the colors right up. It is a lovely way to tint. You know, simple. And I might even think maybe it's a little bit sharp on the blacks, but apart from that, it is lovely. But it really does depend on the project. What is the project and what kind of look are you going for in your project? You know, that's what it comes down to. So say, for example, I wanted to go in a different way. So if I took the tint off and remove it, okay, so you can see it's quite bland and saturated now, and the colors aren't so defined. And if I just go into Vidacine, now Vidacine automatically puts a blue on it for some reason, I don't know why. If we go to options and then customize the filter, so here you've got loads of presets, and the presets are great, although I always end up tweaking them. There are literally, there must be hundreds of them. It just really depends what you're doing in Coral. For example, if you just go film look tint, now it's tinting, but at the same time it adds, you can do things like diffusion, and sometimes it's great to diffuse because it takes a little bit of the sharpness off, but it also gives it that cinematic look. So there's a diffused red, for example. I tend to favor diffused blue quite a lot, which is nice, but I don't think it'll work for this type of video, for the simple fact, diffused blue, if you're working outside, it'll make the sky go yellow, and I don't really like that because we've got beautiful colors there. I think you should probably make the colors quite nice, and you can add colors like magenta, take the magenta away, diffuse the magenta, which gives it that, you can see it's diffused now, it's not as sharp, which is nice, and I do use that from time to time because it does almost give it a cinematic look. Add blue is quite a popular one too. Again, it does sharpen and make things deeper and clearer, but again, it depends on the project. So I'm not actually feeling any of these, to be fair. I think I actually really like the tint, the Kodachrome tint on it for this type of video. You know, as I said, it really just depends on what you're going for. I mean, film look extreme, you know, there's so many different things you could do. You can go crazy and do all these kinds of crazy effects. Why would you do that? But you know, when you're working low budget, less is always more. And I think for us, what we tend to highlight for our clients are things like just, you know, making sure that your film work is good. So look, there's all these different weird kind of effects you can do, but all these kinds of effects, you know, are great. I mean, this is lovely. Look at this. This is very nice, actually. Kind of like that's sepia, which is actually a setting we can put on our cameras, which is quite nice. You can see it. So if you were trying to do a flashback or something, you might want to do that kind of look. It's actually kind of cool when you look at it like that. It almost looks like an old movie a little bit. So yeah, so there's lots of different effects you can do. I mean, say you need it to look like a TV, for example. But as I said, there's lots of different ways you can do things and give it that arty look, which we see on Instagram posts. We wouldn't put that on a music video. And there's lots of different stuff there, light wipes to, I mean, it depends what you're doing really, to be fair. But these are not really, this is not color grading, these are not getting into effects. So when you're going in and you're doing things like color grading, you're looking at sort of film look tints and things like that, to really set the color and the way you want it. I'm not going to save that because I don't like it. I'm going to undo and undo. And I'm going to put the tint back on it because I think the tint was lovely and it was really sharp and clean and clear. If I copy those attributes and put it on another shot, for example, this shot, we'll see what it looks like. Now, you see, the issue with this is now that looks really orange. So you wouldn't necessarily want that shot the same settings as that shot. Now that's the same settings, but as you can see, because there's so much more sun in this shot, you can't use the same tint. Or if you're using the same tint, then you gotta reduce it substantially. I mean, you could, no, even there's, the presets aren't really gonna work. She just looks orange at the minute. So what I would do, because I'm trying to keep it similar, I would take the tint color down. So there you go, something quite simple. There we go, just reduce it down so she's not so orange looking. And then so that's minus 21.5. So I'll go to the end of the frame and you're going to want to do the same again, have minus 21.5, enter, and boom. So what you're going to do is you're going to play about with your shots to make sure they all are in sync. So if I compare that shot to the previous shot there, you want it to be very similar in the style. So it's quite strong. The blacks are very strong, but it doesn't look orange. We don't want orange. Yeah, so that's pretty good. So if you compare it then, I mean, it's actually not a bad shot plain. It's not OTT. So then if I copy those attributes and I put it there, I might even reduce the orange just a little bit more. It's still a bit, she looks really orange for some reason. So, and this is what you do, you know, you could copy and paste the attributes again. Let's have a look, and look, it's too much now. It's not nice. That's what I'm saying. You really got to play with it. So if I copy these attributes from this shot, hang on, and paste it over to this shot, for example. There we go. That's not bad. That kind of works. You can see it's just totally sharpened up all the colours and defined it. So if we go undo, undo, undo. So that's the original shot there. And you can see it's still in its raw state. If I paste the colours and boom, you got beautiful, gorgeous colours in there. The pinks and the browns on the skin. It looks lovely. And the blue of the water looks amazing as well. Paste. There you go. It just really does make it pop. And I think doing stuff like that, I mean, for a video like this, I'm going to have to sit and really play around with it until I get it the way I want, because of the simple fact that there's so many different scenes, and it's just a wee bit of a process. So if I go to this shot here, say I paste, I mean, that's not bad. It's nice and warm looking. I could probably take the orange down in it. So sometimes I'll find a preset, and then I can copy and paste it over, and then just tweak it as I need to. Now you see, it hasn't worked on that shot, so we'll undo that, which means I'll have to go in and just do that one independently. I mean, you could put, let me see, if we put this one, copy attributes from that shot, paste all attributes. I mean, that's too much. I think it's horrible now. I don't even know if I would put anything on this shot. It's something very basic. So what I'll do now is I'll go into my tint and I'll have a play. If I put tint on her face, ooh, she looks a bit strong there. Now Kodachrome is what I've been using, but I think it's not going to work. Warm is going to be too much. Ooh, she looks orange now. Cool is a bit much. I mean, all of these are a bit much, to be honest. You know, so you might even make the decision that you don't need to do anything, to be fair. I take the gamma down, it just seems to be too sharp or something. We'll try that. That's what it was. That's not bad. It's okay. I'm still not sure. a hard one to call, to be fair. So what I'll do now is I'll go through this and I'll play around, and I might be able to copy and paste some attributes over and things like that, but not all of them, as you can see. This one might not work for all these shots. No, it's not going to work. So we'll have to tweak all our settings until we get it. So what you're aiming for on a video like this that has various scenes is trying to make it all balanced. So once you have your shots all in, and you've picked all your shots, and you've got your dialogue, and you know exactly where you want shots to go, then what you have to think about is making sure that it's consistent throughout, and the same sort of color look, and the same sort of balance of colors. So if it's strong true blacks throughout, then you got to keep that. If you want it to have that saturated, faded, bright look, then it's got to be like that throughout. And it's just a case of just sitting through each scene. I think it's quite good. You know, I've got a scene there for 10 seconds of similar shots where it's going wide, close, walking shots, panning shots. So what you can do is literally, if you set one, I guarantee you can set them all the same and it'll look fine. You know, if I just play around, oops, face the location of the shot. So yeah, so luckily you can do stuff like that, and that's a great time saver. You don't have to sit and do them independently. It's just copy and paste the attributes. I'm not saying that's what I'm going to go for. That's a bit strong. So that shot in particular, I might fade out a little bit because it's very hard to see him there. He looks a bit dark. But the rest of it, you could copy and paste it, you know, and make it still a bit dark. So I would probably lift that one a little bit with brightness or the gamma. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, for color grading DSLR, that's what we do. I mean, ultimately, it really depends on, first of all, your cameras. It depends on your software you're using and what you have access to. Not all softwares have them, but I would seriously recommend getting a good software that has these sorts of facilities like tinting, and where you can play around with things like the gamma and the color and brightness, the saturation, all those things. I mean, that just looks lovely there. I love that. Look how clean that looks now. You know, the other thing I would do, which I always think helps the color grade actually, are effects like blurring effects. I mean, obviously this has been filmed beautifully and I don't need to blur it in any way. But if, for example, a shot's been filmed quite wide, I don't know. I mean, this is a wide shot. I mean, it's perfectly focused on them, but you might want to add a little extra blur in there just to keep the focus. And that, I know that's not color grading, but sometimes that can really help to make the shot pop much more. In my software in particular, I have this thing called rack focus, which I've started using obsessively. And I'll just show it to you quickly. So if I pull it down onto my shot, I don't use it all the time, but I use it sometimes. So you can see it's blurred out the ends. So if I go into options and then customize it, now and go to the start of the shot. So we want it to focus in on them, and their location is about there-ish. So as you can see, it has blurred all here much more profoundly and just brought the focus to this section here of the shot. And then you want to copy and paste that over. Well, no, they've moved, so you gotta almost move with them. There we go. I hit OK and play the shot. And I mean, that's just blurred that out. And it's not necessary in this particular shot because I think it's a beautiful shot and it doesn't need to have that on it. So if I take it away, it's still a really lovely shot. And I think it's nice to see what's going on here. I think it's a really interesting location. But just for example's sake, sometimes that can just really help your shots to pop even more, especially when it comes to when you're doing the color grade and things like that. It really does help. These wide shots where they are on the beach actually is a good example. I see these shots here. There's occasions where there was kids in the background and things like that. You might want to blur out and defocus the edges here if a kid runs in by mistake, or you know, whatever. I've managed to work around it, so it's not important, but just to give you an example of where you might want to blur stuff out if there's stuff in the background that you don't want people to see. So as you can see, I've copied and pasted there. I mean, and look, it's lovely. Looks gorgeous. Look at the blue at the top. It's just highlighted everything really strongly. So that's it, really. I don't have much more to say on the matter. That is basically what I do for my low budget DSLR photography projects. Everyone works differently. If you're on, Adobe or whatever software, it's going to be a different setup. But I always try and say less is more when working on low budget DSLR stuff. So please take that big advice. Less is more. Keep it simple. Don't try and do something that might look distasteful. So when it comes down to it, it's always just good videography. And if you've got good videography with real life colors, you shouldn't have to do too much color grading. Color grading is mainly for it's mainly for cinematography cameras, because a lot of the time when you're working on those big 4K cameras, you're filming in RAW, which means there's actually no color. Well, there is, but you can barely see it, and you gotta add the color, and that's what it's all about. That's what color grading is all about. Color grading on DSLR cameras that are today's cameras, which are the most up-to-date cameras, you don't have to do a whole lot. You're really just emphasizing and making it even better than what it was by 10%. It's not a lot, but it still has to be done, and it still has to be tweaked and made to look like something better than DSLR, and it really does help to make it pop. So that's it, really. And if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to ask me about editing. I'm happy to share my tips with everyone and anyone on YouTube. So just feel free to ask away. Thanks for listening. Bye.